We'll give it a couple seconds to let it go ahead and stream up. All right, so we will call the December 22nd, 2021 Broadband Committee meeting to order. I appreciate everybody joining on the last minute, but we had some late breaking news and wanted to go ahead and bring everybody up to date on both the grant status and the meeting that we've had with the DHCD and the next steps at this point. David, do I need to go through a regular agenda or do we just go ahead and roll with it now since we don't actually have an agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right. The ayes have it. All right. Do we have any old business to discuss?
Let's just move on since this meeting. Let's try to keep the agenda just to the DHCD, and then we'll go back with the regular meeting next month.
Okay, works for me.
I would dispense. I move that we dispense with any old business or just postpone that till the next meeting.
Okay.
If we may, Mr. Chairman, I had one question for Mr. Robinson regarding the schools and trailers. We can take that up last.
Okay. I'll add that to my all right, it's on the list. We'll bring that up.
You should have my background. You should also have my background.
Oh, I've got your background now. All right, perfect. That way we can be at the same office and working. All right. So, David, do you want to take it away?
I'll start out, Jason, and then you can bring them up to speed with the board meeting as well. And then I'll drop back and we'll discuss the DHCD meeting that Mr. Thomas was present and just try to bring everybody up to speed. I guess it's been 2 weeks next Monday now that I drove down to Goochland for the announcement of the VATI grants for 2022. And it was a long drive and I started getting a bad feeling when I got there. But it was announced at that meeting that we were not awarded either of our two applications based on the fact that in a conversation with Chandler Vaughn with the DHCD, I was told that because we did not have universal coverage, we were disqualified, which we found out at our meeting, Mr. Thomas, the other yesterday, I guess it was now.
Monday.
That's not necessarily the case. It did hurt us, but it was not the sole reason. So at that point, DHCD is really good on following up with their scoring with each locality that did not receive money. And so it's very similar to the situation that we found ourselves in originally when we applied for Panola Road extension. We did not win. Mm-hmm. We went through the review with DHCD. They told us what we needed to do to change that application and strengthen it. We did, and then we were successful. So the scoring criteria changed a lot this year. So we were in a completely different scoring round. So the post review was very important. We covered a lot of data. The members of this committee have received in the email that I sent out a link. So if you want access to that, click the link. And like I said, because of the size of it, the only way we could do it was on Google Drive to share it because it's pretty large. But so you can watch that meeting that we had. But anyway, as far as the announcement, that's what I was told. I was told that we had a good application, a well-prepared application. Financially, it was strong, but was told that we should resolve the issue with universal coverage being attained in one application cycle and resubmit the applications. So that's where we left that meeting. Anyway, Jason, did you want to bring them up to speed on our report to the board?
Yes, sir. So that was, when was the board meeting that we had? That was this, not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday prior to that.
The 14th. The 14th.
14th, yep, perfect. So the 14th, we presented to the Board of Supervisors the information that we had not received the grant, that we were having the meeting with DHCD. In the meantime, Mr. Jacobus, myself, Mr. Sadler, and then while we were there at the meeting, we talked to Mr. Thomas and Mr. Seeley about potentially going for an RFP and going down that route to help get the overall universal coverage and working with an RFP. We presented that to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors supported that and supported us moving forward with that. So Mr. Sadler has been actually working with other people. Tyler Biku actually provided us a template for us to work with to help with the RFP for covering west of 95 through different providers. So basically send out a request for proposal for other providers to come in and give us, so that way next year when we do our VATI grant, we can have full universal coverage across the board. So I don't know whether you want to add anything else to that, Mr. Sadler, or?
I think that's a pretty good representation of the meeting that night. Basically, staff was directed to begin work on the RFP and authorized to go out to RFP. So basically, as far as an approval of the RFP from this committee, not necessary. We're already working on it. As soon as we get that ready, it will hit the streets early January. We still have some details to work out as far as the timeline, but we are, Mr. Parton is with his wordsmith skills are working on that RFP and was working on it throughout the day today. So hopefully we'll have an RFP to go out on the street. Just so everyone knows, this kind of takes us into the meeting that we had the other day, the review meeting with DHCD. And at that meeting, and if you watch the video, you will see Mr. Thomas asked me to bring up to them at that meeting the fact that we had already addressed the fact that we could not attain universal coverage because we were working with two providers, and one of which was rather slow to respond to any requests that we had. But that we discussed that early on with DHCD, and they told us reference it as a phased project with that provider and reference it clearly in the application, which we did, but it wasn't good enough to get us the 25 points that we would have needed to put us close. So that being said, at the meeting, I think Mr. Thomas would agree that it was pretty clear, at least if they follow the same guidelines that they did during this cycle, any application short of one that attains universal coverage in a single application, it's not going to be successful. So in that meeting, we went pretty much line by line of the entire, both applications, although both were fairly similar. But we spent more time on the ABB application. Now, I can't commit for ABB, and the people that I've been working with cannot make a final commitment for ABB. But at this point, we have a preliminary approval to enter a partnership with ABB in the same project. And they've already spent time and money doing that, doing the estimate. So, and it was the stronger of the two applications anyway, as far as financial. What we don't know at this point is what's going to happen to cost of materials and or labor due to the fact that, $470 million was given out to localities all across this state. And I'm sure similar actions are being taken at other states. So the demand for fiber is getting really high. The last time I talked to Mr. Newborg, some of the fiber is actually 3 years out. If they order it now, it'll be 3 years before delivery. That being said, most partners have some in stock, so hopefully that won't affect it. So we have a commitment, at least a preliminary commitment from ABB, so that would cover us everything east of Caroline, which leaves us the west side. In all fairness to all parties, including the party that slowed us up this time, the RFP will go out on the street and they will have a chance to respond. However, it would be on our timeline, not their timeline. So what we're expecting is a quick turnaround on the RFP, 30, 60, 90 days, as quick as we can get it back and give everybody a chance to respond. But once those dates are finalized, they'll be in the RFP and we'll let everybody on this committee know. If we get an RFP, for those of you that are not in government, a request for proposal, we go out to the public and ask companies to respond and give us the estimated cost, and so we can start looking at those numbers and see which one makes the most sense. Once we get those RFPs back, the proposals come back, they're received, and then a committee will review those proposals. I would assume that if we're not the final decider of who would get the RFP, this committee would be one of the first. That being said, we're going to stick with our strategic plan that Mr. Thomas helped us formulate early on, giving favoritism to the ones that can deliver, gig up, gig down fiber, coax fiber hybrid over other projects. Because when you go out RFP, now you have the possibility that you may have like fixed wireless companies responding. So we want to make sure that we keep in mind when we do get to the scoring that we want to follow our strategic plan. Obviously, from the meeting that we had earlier on Monday, either the cable companies providing fiber or fiber coax hybrid tend to be higher than some of the solutions that other localities may have chosen to go with. It's always been this committee's belief that we would be better off to maybe go with a little more expensive project that helps us get a higher quality of service, and then also a type of service that we don't have to worry about upgrading radios, for example. 10 years, 5 to 10 years down the road, all wireless radios would probably have to be replaced, and who does that? So if we stick with our strategic plan, I think that will help us.
And David,
so
there's a couple of things. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it sounded like you were done. We had with those two proposals, 1,700 connections? Maybe at 1,200 and 500. Was that what it was?
The two proposals together was about 29.
We had 366 on the Comcast side, and we had 2932 on the ABB, but that also includes, I don't know whether the 931 is part of the RDOF passings, or is that part of it?
I saw that as well, and I'm not really clear as to whether it would be an additional 900 or if that was part of the solution.
But the reality is, between those two proposals, we had over 3,000 connections.
Right.
And the scoring, and I'd like to go through that in a second, but the scoring that the state used for this award gave 25 points for total coverage, and our area uncovered was about 300 connections. Right. So we had 3,000, and because we didn't have the other 300 in this proposal, but had them in a phased proposal for next year, we didn't get those points in that particular category.
Right.
I mean, I think that's important for people to know. We covered a lot of the county in this proposal, and as David said, David talked to the powers that be at the state, and they said it was okay to submit a phased approach for total coverage. And then during the scoring, we got dinged for total coverage.
Yeah, and it was a very it was a very competitive grant cycle. So we may have been okay in a normal grant cycle. I'm going to share my screen.
Can I go through that for a second? Yeah, but you'll notice, and I had these numbers or this spreadsheet Monday, and I went through. There are 6 projects on there that are 65 million and more.
Yep.
The highest one is 95 million. So those 6 projects took up 465 million of the 722 million that was awarded.
Right.
Those projects averaged 77 million. Caroline's projects, the 2 together, were 34 million. And we were about 20 points outside of the last one that won, and that was a $60-some million project.
So right there is the cutoff line.
That dark line, just so everybody knows, that darker line is the
The
cutoff.
dark line is the cutoff line, and we fell down below that.
We're at 180.
Yeah, we were at 180, and the lowest was awarded was 203. No, I'm sorry, 210.
210.
So we're not far out. If we added the 25, and then we got 6 more points, I think we figured, Mr. Thomas, if we got that 25 and then 6 more points, we would have been in the money this time. The one thing too that everyone needs to keep in mind is that with the large amount of huge projects that were funded, the next round of money will very likely be much smaller than 700 million, but there'll be a lot less people competing for that. So I think we stand a really good chance in discussion with the board and at the meeting. We figure we plug that universal coverage hole and take care of that, and that's what we're working on with the RFP. And then we go back through the application, and there's some areas where I think we can fine tune that application and get even more points. So I think we stand a really good chance next time. And just based on what, they said the applications look good. The fact is, if we go with extending cable companies, which is what our strategic plan gives preference to, then it's going to be more expensive than some of these other projects. Now, if you look back to the expense of our project is higher because we have 2 major cable companies, and those 2 major cable companies are taking anybody that's in a highly densely populated area right now have coverage. So that leaves us only the rural. So the project would look better on numbers wise if we had no internet for anybody, and then we would have those dense areas to figure in and make up for the less dense areas. So we've got some challenges to overcome, but I don't believe any of them are insurmountable at this point. Jason, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure, this is something that I was thinking about earlier today, and I don't know whether my thought process is right with this or not. But everybody above the line has universal coverage, correct?
Theoretically.
Yes, and
okay.
Yeah.
So my thought is that everything below the dark line, fell short of that, either fell short because they didn't get universal coverage, or they did, but they lost points somewhere else. So in my thinking, I don't know whether this is correct thinking or not, but the counties up above, Roanoke County, Dinwiddie County, all these other counties that are up there should not be coming back to the honeypot at this point, because they've obtained universal coverage in some way, shape, or form.
Theoretically, that would be true. And in the analysis that we went through with DHCD, that was one of the things they said, that most of the awards did have universal coverage. And
And another,
I say theoretically because I specifically asked the question.
Oh, I heard you.
Were all of these people really having universal coverage? And DHCD said, we just believe what the application says.
Right.
So they may or may not have had universal coverage, but they said they believe they did. There's
So
another.
Right now we're looking at Charles County, Wythe County, Craig County, whatever this West Piedmont, PBC is, Caroline County. There's just a handful of counties that are left that would not have universal coverage. That's effectively, or let's say theoretically is a better way to put it. If we go back next year to the honeypot and say, hey, we now potentially, this is going to give us universal coverage, we should be in a better place because the pool of applicants should be smaller. That's just, I was just thinking about that earlier while I was out riding around, mulling over this information that I got last night and today.
But you also have to remember that the pool of money will be significantly smaller because this was a large investment made by the federal government directly to all these localities.
But did this money that was awarded out this time, did this include the new infrastructure bill in that money?
No, it did
My
not.
understanding was no, it was the basically the broadband money as part of the infrastructure bill. Some of that was there because remember they had what, 50 million to start with,
Right.
and they got 700 million. So, and that was another question that I asked directly. If the state gets more money, do we just keep going down the list of awardees? And it didn't seem like that's what they wanted to do. It seemed like they would use that additional funds for the next fiscal year's award.
Okay.
Now then, and one of the another interesting thing that we brought up at the meeting was because they funded universal coverage for all these other counties, the next application cycle should be much less crowded. And we're trying to encourage them to move up those timelines, hopefully, and maybe try to get it out a little quicker since they'll have a lot less huge applications to review. It should be a much simpler, much more streamlined process. And if we're able to, hopefully we can get that moved up.
Awesome. That's good information. Thank you, guys.
So I guess what we can do and spend just a few minutes going down through here. We have the two, ABB is definitely at least initially interested in resubmitting basically the same areas and application. Again, what we don't know is what the total project cost will be. So that may be some changes, but since their application will be relatively the same as what they've submitted, we'll go down through this application real quick just to give you guys an idea of some areas that we can improve on. And some of them may take some work by this committee. There's a couple of areas where ABB may be able to help us out by providing a little more detailed information. The one thing that most large cable companies or most large companies are not willing to do is be out front and publish their cost and rates for construction publicly because it can give a competitor an unfair advantage. That's one area we got knocked down a little bit in, and we'll cover that here in just a second. So let's just start at the top real quick. This is the ABB application. We were asking, see, and right here we lost, this is, so it's 2932 plus 931. So that's right at 4,000 houses.
Yeah, see, that's what I was trying to figure out. I need to go back and look at our original application. I've got it here with our number of passings, so I can pull that up real quick.
So if we go down to the next area where we start getting points, of course, there's not anything that we can do about the number of businesses, home-based businesses or community anchors that we actually have, but what we can do is improve on the way we report those.
Yep.
Mr. Thomas brought up a very good point with the large number of churches that we have. If we can get some way to be able to certify that those churches hold community meetings, then we can get them qualified as community anchors, because in this current application, they're not really showing up as a business or community anchor. So we're losing those. And so we just need to go back, and this will be some work for me to do with GIS and different things. But I wanted to bring that before the committee, because to get your ideas to see what's the best way for us to get an email or a letter or something from all the churches just saying that they hold community meetings and serve, other than just having church service. All the churches in our county are community anchors. And I've said that from the very beginning, and it was a problem that I had with this entire grant cycle, was the fact that when they ask for community anchors, the first thing that pops in my mind is churches. So for that reason, I felt like it's kind of unfair not to be able to include those churches. So that's one issue. That's one area that we really need to work on. The other thing is just going back through and making sure that we're getting credit for all the businesses in the area. So that's something that we can work on and hopefully get some more points there.
So let me ask one quick question there, because I was watching the video this morning, and I think they said we had 25 or 28 anchors, and that's why we got 2 points, because 1 to 5 points is anywhere from 1 to 125 community anchors. And then you get 6 to 10 is 126 to 500 community anchors. So I'm thinking probably if we add the churches in, the most we can get out of this would be 2 points. Is that?
And that is, but if you look down below that, 0 businesses, community anchors. So something is, I think that was actually scored wrong, because I know we included home-based businesses and brick and mortar businesses in the application.
They said home-based businesses did not count, because they would potentially be using those internet connections for personal and business. So that doesn't count as a community anchor. So that's why we ended up with the 2 points there. If we as a committee are okay with it, we can, I don't know whether, Ms. Sadler, I don't want to throw more work on you, but if we can come up with kind of a generic letter to the churches. I don't know whether the Rueting clubs were actually included into this figure, because they do have a bunch of the community meetings and things there. But we can, if we come up with a generic letter, we can just start contacting different churches down here in the Dawn area, all over the different, all over the county, and potentially even utilize some of the pastors to reach out to other ones and kind of start a network out from there and start getting letters back. Would probably be the best way. And I can contact Reverend Fields at Second Mount Zion and potentially have a conversation with him and see whether he can help me out. And maybe even Mr. Upshaw can give me some good pointers too, if we need to go that way.
I know that there's a group of pastors that meets on a regular basis from within the county that would cover several churches. So
I think it's the Monday Don't Quit meeting is what Kevin Moen used to call it. Our pastor was the Monday Don't Quit meeting or pastor meeting. So yeah, it's like a breakfast that they have. So if I can get with somebody inside of there and maybe surface this up, maybe we can get some letters and so forth on that.
Yeah, one of the things he did mention specifically was the Rueting clubs. That's another one.
Yes. He did mention Rueting clubs specifically.
Do we have anybody on this board that knows anything about the Rueting clubs or can actually work with them?
Yeah, me. I'm the treasurer of one, and
You're the
Sorry.
treasurer of the
I can
of the
definitely
research.
write letters, but I see here that it only constitutes, missing 8 points. So I don't know if that's enough to send us over the top, but we'll do whatever
Well,
it takes on this next
I-
proposal.
I don't think we could have gotten the 8 points. I think the most we would have gotten in my opinion, would be 5 points. Because I don't think we have over 125 churches and businesses that would be served by this. So I see this as potentially a 3 to maybe even max 4 points that we could have gotten here. Just
Now, if we move on down the line to question 6D, this is one that I totally disagree with because.
And I disagree with what they said in the video. I completely disagree because they said we got max points for this and we only got 10.8 points out of 15 points. But in their meeting, they said we got full points for this.
Yeah, we should have gotten 15 because none of the project areas we have any service at 10.1 or above. Everything is below 10.1 in all the service areas that we applied for. So we just have to make sure in the application that we're clear on that. I think probably what they may have done is fallen back to the FCC map, which shows 10.1 or above being areas served by DSL, but unless there's some kind of new DSL out there that I'm not aware of,
There's not.
I don't.
Trust me.
They might have been going off LTE or hotspots or something, generic for everybody. But yeah, that is screwy.
And that's supposed to be, LTE wireless hotspots are totally disqualified. So if they did that, then they definitely violated their guidelines because we did not have to consider wireless or satellite in that 10.1 or below number. And
So question in the video, because Tyler Biku spoke up during that portion of the meeting and said the reason that, what showed the 10/1 plan, and I'm trying to look through our application right now. He said there was a map in here of Caroline that had some salmon color that showed that it had 10/1 areas. And maybe we need to look at that map a little bit better. I'm trying to scan through the document real quick to see whether I can find it. But maybe we need to make sure that information is buttoned up and is good because maybe that's some false information inside of that map, wherever they're getting it from.
and that comes from the FCC map. So
Okay.
if there's a mistake on there, it's by FCC, and I don't know. I guess if we're very clear about it in the application and vocalize that it is incorrect, that we've actually, we're familiar with those areas and they do not have that service, we may be able to get that. But there's no reason why we should not be able to attain 15 points there, but in 100% coverage of 10.1 or passings of 10.1 or below.
Right.
So we just have to, that's one area we have to watch next time. What we may end up doing is just going through these things real quick tonight, and kind of have the discussions like we're having now, but we're probably going to have to revisit some of this stuff in greater detail at a later time. So this is the stickler right here that got us. We had a universal plan. That's a plan that we worked hard on, going back and forth, getting that plan worked out, getting it approved by the board. We did all that. So we got 25 points for that. But what we did not get, we got 0 points because we were unable to achieve universal coverage or a part of the applications that achieved universal coverage. It doesn't make sense because one of our applications achieved universal coverage in more than probably 75% of the county, but then the other one did not. So that's the one we're working on. That's the one the RFP is going to go out for. Hopefully that would be, we can get that done in time and get 25 points in that area. Project readiness. we lost a couple points right there, and they mentioned being more specific in the timeline. So we'll work with ABB to try to get those points. We might as well try to get any points that we really fell short of. Multiple partners.
Real quick, David, I apologize because I've got another question, but just so you know, it's on page 26 of our VATI grant is wrong. They have my house where I am currently located. I've zoomed in on the map saying that I have 10/1 to 25/3 megabit. And they have it all the way
that's
up.
Because it's the, and that's because you're probably real close to, if not within the DSL area.
Yeah.
And that's where the mistake is made.
And I've got DSL here at my house, and the most that my DSL provider can give me at a stable connection is 5 megs over 768 kilobits. So I am nowhere approaching that 10/1. I have actually tried to get it to go to 7/1. And there are too many taps on the line from the central office to my house to accurately support the 7 meg over 1 meg line to my house. So I can specifically state, living in an address that they're saying is covered by 10/1, that is incorrect data.
Yeah, so we've got to, we'll probably work with Tyler Biku and figure out what's the best way to challenge that.
Okay.
Or if it's
I just wanted to let you know that it's on.
Challenge it.
Yeah, it's on page 26, so that way we have it.
Yeah, we know, I know that the DSL, I can look at that map and tell you what areas have DSL, and that's the problem right there. So can we correct that or challenge it? We can't correct it because it's on the FCC site, but can we challenge it in a way that we can get the maximum number of points there? We'll find out. So if we go on to question number 14, multiple partners leverage multiple project parts. So, but we're limited. We have 2 partners in 2 project areas, but Jason and I have discussed this at length, and I think if we're careful about, for example, we would partner with REC to expedite pole attachments. We will partner with VDOT to allow our right-of-ways, stuff that we've discussed in the past, but we need to maybe formalize that a little bit so we can bring in a few more partners. I think that would help us there.
There was another one there, David, that we asked about, and we could include the schools to do specific project things. So that's another partner. We may find other I guess nonprofits out there that are doing some things. Anybody else in the community that could possibly benefit from broadband expansion could be seen as a partner, and we need to figure out how to incorporate them in this entire project.
What about fire and rescue?
That's they're technically county, so if we were to partner with Frog Level Volunteer Fire Department, possibly. It's the same thing. Carolina Library is a county agency, so that would probably not be considered a separate partner, a unique partner to it. So I guess the main thing is what we want to do tonight is just get these out there, get this information out there so that people on the committee can think through this. But also we would definitely invite input from the community. We are on YouTube. If you guys watching this have ideas where we can improve it, we're definitely open to any areas that we can try to improve this. So please let us know. The rest of those areas look like we did pretty good on. We got the maximum on those. Let's go down to question number 17. All right, so the project costing completely and clearly, that's where they want more detail than most private companies are willing to divulge in an application, but there is a workaround for that. If they apply for FOIA exemption, then those would not be made public. So we'll work with ABB to discuss that. ABB has also been sent the link to that full presentation that we had on Monday with DHCD, so they can hopefully watch it and see areas that they can improve on as well. So we lost some points in there. We got 8 points. We lost a couple. The cost benefit index, there's not much we can do about that. We've already discussed the fact that we're in less dense parts of our own county, so the cost benefit index is going to be higher. The only thing that I will caution is that the overall project cost may change due to the cost of materials. We hope that, they would stay somewhere close to that. So if we come down here, you see we lost 10 points for unique partnerships. And that's what we were kind of discussing earlier. So that's where we need everybody on the committee to be thinking, yes, we partner with VDOT on right-of-ways and allow ABB to use those right-of-ways. We partner with, write down a list. Anything that you can think of, please be thinking about that, because that's 10 points.
Railroad?
That was something we talked about.
We use the railroad as leverage, so I don't know that you could use it as leverage and then a unique partnership, because
That's where I'm getting confused, is the leverage versus unique partnerships. And I think that's where I need to go back and rewatch their explanation, because she gave multiple explanations or examples of these partnerships or leverage. And, like leverage, she said, would be riding on REC's poles to do the fiber connections or what have you, is how she put in there for leverage, was one of her.
Leverage would be cost or investment that the county's making outside of the application to make the application possible. So the cost of going under the railroad tracks, that's leverage.
Okay.
The cost of county employees doing the background work and creating maps and identifying areas, that the cost of that would be leverage. The cost of county employees' time in doing task contracts for the engineering of the railroad crossings, all that. So I think there's some areas in there where we can get some more leverage. Unique partnerships, that's going to be the challenge. So that's what we need to be thinking about, because that's 10 points there. 25 points for universal coverage and 10 points for unique partnerships would have got us in the money this time.
We've been singing a different tune.
I just thought of a couple right now. Scouts and Caroline Promise.
Yes.
Whatever. I know Girl Scouts are out there selling cookies, so we may find a way to use them as part of our application.
So that's just a quick overview. I did receive a follow-up sent about 7:45 this morning from Chandler with DHCD, answering some of the questions that we proposed to him at the meeting on Monday, Mr. Thomas. So I'm going to get that out to everyone on the committee and everyone that was in that meeting. Examples is he listed some applications for us to take a look at that received maximum points in certain areas that we could use some improvement. So we can look at those applications. And then I think he also discussed this, and we might as well bring this up because it's 5 points, that we can do absolutely nothing about this distressed area consideration. You either got 0, 5, or 10, and it's using a DHCD scale, and I guess the financial viability and how much money an area has decides whether you get 0. I guess if you're a Northern Virginia county with a lot of money in the bank, you would get 0. Or if you're in, some of the counties in extreme Southwest Virginia, you'd probably get 10. We fall in the middle of that distress scale. There's an explanation of that distress scale in the information that Chandler sent to me. So we'll get that out. You guys can go through that. We can't move where we're at in the distress scale, so we know we're going to lose 5 points there. But I guess in a way that's a good thing, right, Mr. Thomas?
That was, but I wasn't sure how we got 10 points for digital equity, low income programs, and only 5 points for distressed area considerations. Some of it seems the same, but I'd like to see what their explanation is when you send it out.
I think I specifically remember them talking about that because of the large number of digital equity programs that are offered by ABB for lower income and EBB, the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program through ABB to help lower income people connect. And because of the number and the diversity of those programs, we were awarded 10 on that.
Yeah, Comcast has a program like that too, so we probably got points there, but
yeah,
I would put up our average household income against others that said they got 10 points and see where we fit. But
Yep.
We'll follow that up. That's one to follow up.
And there is more specific information in the links that I will send out to you from Chandler that describes how they figure that. I don't remember seeing any of this information even mentioned in the application, so that was kind of really new to me when we covered this at the meeting on Monday. That was the first I'd heard of that. So that was a new nuance to the application that I wasn't aware of. But that's the areas that we're looking to improve on. We wanted to get these out here tonight for everybody on the committee and anybody in the public that's listening that has any ideas where we can strengthen the application for next time. Don't be discouraged because we've been denied before and turned around and learned from our mistakes and we're successful. So we'll do everything humanly possible. Support from the board is still there. So it's not over, it's just delayed. And we'll continue to work hard to get a winning application in next cycle. And if all goes well, hopefully next cycle will be a little bit sooner than this cycle. It won't be quite as extended from the date. That's what I'd requested at the meeting. I guess we need to get that in writing somewhere down there to them, Mr. Thomas, so they can consider that. But with a fewer number of applications that they're going to be processing, I would hope that application date to award date can be shortened somehow. And I know that there's a challenge period in there that has to be by law, and we can't do anything with that. But hopefully we can streamline it, or they can streamline it a little bit to allow, us to get a little earlier word back this time.
But, right, now that's part of it, David, and I think something everybody needs to understand. This particular grant cycle, the money for it doesn't get passed out to the locality and the vendors until July 1st, 2022. So the next grant cycle, if they kept the same timeline, would be July 1st, 2023. So we'd be, a year and a half out at least before we got money for our next project. What David mentioned and what we all said on the call was hopefully they get more money for this year, either through the proposed budget the governor just turned in or more federal funds that would allow them to make an additional award in next year's fiscal budget. So that's the hope. That's
so I guess, that's pretty much what I thought we needed to get out there tonight. Most everybody should have received the score sheet as well as the presentation from Monday. If there's anything else, but I needed to try to get that. I see Jason with his hand up again.
No, I never put it back down. I apologize. I did, just so everybody knows, I just put into the chat the FCC map link to the map overview. It actually gives you some pretty decent information where you can zoom in on the county and see where they're saying different places are served. And I just took it from the URL that's at the bottom of the page 26 inside of our VATI grant. So if you want to zoom in on that and kind of move around, that's where they're showing 7 meg down over 1 meg up and who the provider is. And they're actually saying cable modem is who the provider is. So I don't know where this data is coming from. That's actually owned by one person, and the name of that person is there. So maybe I can reach out to him and contact him and say, hey, where's this information actually being fed from? And maybe
It's a
that'll give us
form.
some information.
There's a form 902 or something. It's a number in the 900s that providers have to provide to the FCC. And that's where that map is made from. So I don't know how much influence we're going to have on that map. I do know that there is a push on at the federal level. The other kind of nuance that didn't affect us in this application is the census blocks. If you have a census block and you have 3 houses in that census block that have service above a certain speed, then the map will show that that entire census block is served.
Right.
And so I know that Rob Whitman has talked about that in several of his town halls where they're trying to get that information disseminated in a different, more accurate way,
Right.
which would help us. But I don't think that affected us. In fact, that might be where that 7/1 is. It may be somewhere in that census block across the county line or somewhere different that has that service, and then that entire census block gets tagged as having that, which is incorrect. So we just have to know. I think we know that ahead of time. We know that we've got to at least spend more time addressing it in the next application.
Yeah, we
if
can call
can't
it
do
out.
anything else. So.
Okay.
All right. And I think that pretty much concludes our brief overview of the application process and scoring. And so just keep in mind those areas that we discussed. Everybody has a copy of that scorecard that you can look at. If you come up with some other areas, we'll be glad to discuss them. And if anybody has any ideas, shoot me an email. For those watching, on YouTube, that's DSADLER at co.caroline.va.us. Shoot me that information and we'll be glad to use that information to try to improve our application next go round. Other than that, Jason, I think that covers what I had to cover.
Okay.
And
I'll
I'll
open
one thing for Mr. Robinson.
Joey, do you have something that you wanted to bring up?
I don't.
Okay.
No, it's for me. I just want to
All
let Mr. Robinson know.
Sure.
I know the schools are off, and we had talked about the wireless internet trailers that the schools were putting out. And I had personally talked to the pastor at Jericho Road and the St. Stephen's and Sparta chairwoman of the deacon board, and they both said yes. And I know that was something we were trying to get an okay before I sent you the names originally, but you couldn't contact us. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew when you get back in school next year, January 3rd, that if you need help to get those set up, you can let me know, but they've got permission to do it.
All right, thank you. We already have all 6 of them deployed. We deployed them in December, right before we left on break.
All right, well, we'll talk some more to make sure you got enough money to get some more deployed.
That would be great, actually, because we have some other churches, like you said, that let us know later on after we'd already deployed them, which is great, but would help out the community if we were able to get a few more.
Well, I think this committee would recommend that you put out as many trailers as we can right now. So I'll take that as a recommendation from the committee unless I hear otherwise.
Mr. Thomas, also to give you an update on the hotspots, we learned at our staff meeting this morning that the hotspots have been received. The process has been worked out for loaning those out of the libraries. And so here very shortly, patrons should be able to contact the library and see about getting the use of a hotspot, as long as the supply is there. And there is a limited number, but So that is making progress.
And there is a minor catch to that one. You have to have a library card, which I don't think is a big, really big issue. But between the library hotspots, the school's Wi-Fi trailers, we're trying to fill as many holes as we can. I know it's like a dike and we're sticking our finger in the dike, but we're trying to do as much as we can right now with what we got. That's it for me.
Yeah. I did have one question for you, Mr. Sadler. With the RFP process, are we going to come back in January and come up with the dates and what the time length is that we want to add to the RFP, whether we want it to be a 30-day RFP, a 60, a 90? Is that something that we'll discuss in January, or?
That's something that's going to be set probably by staff within the next couple of days.
Okay.
But I will take the input that we had. Jason and I had a discussion about this, and we got to be careful about the timeline of the RFP to make sure that we don't come up with an unrealistically short timeline in an effort to get them back too quick, that we discourage quality providers from being able to respond. So
Right.
Thinking maybe 60 days. And I did receive also the list of unserved addresses west of Caroline today. So there needs to be a little bit of work on that. That's one thing I'm gonna have to work on to make sure we get all those covered. The other issue that we really should just throw out there real quick, the 2021 VATI process, 12 additional homes were actually identified when they did the engineering and walkout. And so we're probably going to need to try to get the contribution from the county, get the county to contribute their side, and then ABB will pick up the entire rest since we can't go back to VATI for additional funds. The majority of it's going to be on ABB, but we'll address that once we get the final numbers from ABB. The good thing is 12 more homes are getting served, and probably some of those houses are probably new construction that took place from the time we had the maps until before they got updated. So probably new construction, if I were to guess. But either way, the engineering study, of course, has been complete. One positive note is that the fiber backbone overlash from King George to Port Royal, which is going to allow that entire 17 corridor to be added, was scheduled to start in February. It is basically complete, short of the connections into King George. So they're a couple of months ahead of schedule, and that's what we like to see. So VATI 2021 is still moving forward. All this information that we're putting out here now and on YouTube and in the meetings does not affect that grant. That grant is complete. Construction and engineering has started, and that is scheduled to be complete by December 31st. So we are moving forward with that.
December 31st, 2022, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I just want to make sure I didn't want somebody to go,
I don't think they can get it done. I don't think they'll finish it in 9 days, but I'm thinking next year already. But hopefully, within the next 12 months, we're going to see internet to a lot of houses, thanks to the support from the Board of Supervisors and the hard work from this committee. And we're working hard to try to broaden that to the rest of the county.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think, is there anything else anybody wants to discuss? I believe we've got our date already picked out for our next broadband committee meeting that came from, I think it's what, January? It wasn't the 17th. Did we go with the 18th?
I would have to look, Jason,
I'll
but
look
we'll get
back.
those invites
We'll
out.
get that out.
Just real quick, we covered a lot of information really quick. You guys have a lot of information to mill through, but were there any questions from anybody in the group about anything that we covered that we could clarify before we take off? If not, I would like to say Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. Exactly. Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas. Hey, this is KG. Jason, I'd put down on my calendar January 10th is what y'all said.
January
Yeah.
10th. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, I think we did do that to try to coordinate it, to get it in front of the board members, board meeting in case we needed to do anything. But at this point, the board's already authorized the RFP, so we're working on that. We'll be ready to go on the street. The next business reference to RFP that will come before the board is once we've decided who to go with, and then we'll go to the board with that recommendation.
Right. Cool.
I want to say thanks again for all your hard work and being on the committee.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I would move that we adjourn.
All right. do I have
Second
a
it.
second? All right.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We adjourn. Thank you, guys. Have a good holiday. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
again.
everyone.
Leaving.